Hello, this is Dom and
Tom from BlackToad Studios.
today we are doing another Friday faction focus. And today
Yes.
we are doing the White Scars, the 5th Legion,
What colour are
the
their scars?
Horde of Jakati. Uh,
What colour are their scars?
they're white.
White.
So those who are new to this series, we basically cover a bit of the lore of the series, of the faction in particular, and we go into models and how they play on the battlefield. And so we have been researching very hard, and we're going to cover a bit of the 40k, a bit of the heresy, pre-heresy, and of course post-heresy. So last time we covered a legion, which was Space Wolves. Tom did the 30k aspect, and I did the 40k. So this time around, I will be doing the 30k, and Tom will be doing the 40k. So
Yes.
shall we start with a bit of background, or shall we go into the how they play on the battlefield?
I think we just start from the pre-heresy stuff, mate. I think it's
Cool.
good to start there. I think it's a good starting point. So on you go, son.
Okay, so disclaimer first, I will be butchering some of these pronunciations. So first off, they are the 5th Legion.
It's 5.
Yep, number 5. And of course, they are led by the Great Khan, Jakati Khan. And they were known as the Horde of Jakati by the White Scars. So this is a really interesting legion. I don't know about you, Tom. Beforehand, I went into the White Scars, knowing a fair bit. But then doing research came through, and there's so much stuff there. It's amazing, especially on the 30k aspect of things.
Let's just say I'm rather jealous you got to do the 30k bit on this.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Because I think, as you will agree with me, there's a lot more there than in the current 40k bit of it. In my opinion, I think there was more flavour in the 30k bit. So
yeah, right. So originally they were known as the Star Hunters, and of course they started off on Terra without the Great Khan. They were utilised there by the Emperor as more of a recon force, because they're going to specialise in hit and run attacks. And very much take inspiration from the Mongols and the Great Khan himself. So they started off on Terra, doing a lot of the recon work and kind of being the what's the word? The
reconnaissance force.
Reconnaissance people.
There you go.
Yes, pathfinders.
Oh, there you go.
Pathfinders. So yeah, they were the pathfinders of the Emperor. Of course, once Terra was unified, they went off into space, and they worked alongside other expeditionary forces, going ahead, doing the recon and bringing it back. They weren't at this point fighting as a unified legion. They were seconded out to different forces. And here they got a brilliant reputation of being good at their craft. They're very insular. They wouldn't really go out in and mingle with the other legions. They very much they had this I would say outcast, maybe, this kind of image where they didn't really want to be getting to know anyone. They wanted to be mysterious. They wanted to be that guy that no one really knows about. And so yeah, they went off, brilliant reputation. Definitely Horus was very keen on these guys because of the abilities they had compared to other legions. And as I said, they went out, did their stuff. The Khan himself was thrown from Terra as a little baby and landed on the planet of Chagores. Is that right?
Yeah.
Chagores? Yep.
Or Chagores.
I think Chagores is right.
Okay, we'll go with Chagores.
Once again, Chagores. Basically, it's a big green planet. Lots of
steppes.
Plains, steppes, yep. One massive continent. And on this planet, there were lots of tribes. Very much like, again, taking inspiration from Mongolia. And there he was brought up by a father figure who was then later killed by one of the other tribes. But these tribes were always being quite feudal. They hadn't advanced very far. They were, like a medieval kind of thing. They had these lot of plate armor, mounted, bows and arrows, spears, the whole shebang. Khan was a bit frustrated that there was constant infighting within the tribes, and once his father was killed, basically he went and killed the entire opposing tribe. Everyone was killed, dead. So he gained a reputation from this, and from there he essentially went out to the other tribes and said, look, do you want to join us? If not, game over, and basically cleared the steps of these other tribes. They either joined him and he utilized them, or he wiped them out, because he had enough of this petty squabbling, and he went, look, I'm going to unify this planet. And so this went on for a little while, and so he gained momentum, kept going, and the steps were all united under the Great Khan. And essentially there were other elements on this planet, notably larger cities. And the people in these cities would go out and hunt these tribesmen, because it's a bit of fun. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you want to go hunt people? Khan obviously got hold of this, and he ambushed one of these parties, killed all but one. And the guys went back, warned about the Khan. They came out. Khan's huge army basically wiped him out. And eventually he united the whole planet. But as we get to know the Khan, he is, or the Warhawk as he's known, he is not one who enjoys the role of leadership as such, of maintaining an empire. He's someone who enjoys the hunt. He enjoys fighting. He enjoys going out into the galaxy. Oh, sorry, at this point, going out and having a good fight and honor and enjoying war the best he possibly can. So essentially, the planet was then unified, and the Emperor then suddenly appeared. Boop. I don't believe the White Scars actually found him, because, as I said, they were the guys that are going out scouting the planets. So they're probably quite. They probably found a couple of the Primarchs, in my opinion. Thinking about it, I think they probably landed on a couple of planets, found them, and got the word back to the Emperor. In my opinion, I'd like to think that anyway.
It's possible.
Yeah, why not? Emperor came down, very impressed with what the Khan had achieved. The Khan had basically summed up the Emperor on arrival, and the Emperor already said, "You're my son. Your destiny is to join me and conquer the stars and unite mankind." The Khan looked at the Emperor, listened to him, and worked out, look, I'll go do one of two things here. If I oppose him, there's going to be a war, and I'm probably going to, because I think most of the Primarchs are a bit like that. Once you've met the Emperor, he's a bit of a figure.
He's quite a solid character.
Quite a solid character. Or I join him and unite mankind. And of course, the Khan, we all know how it went. Khan went, "I'm with you, Dad." And
pat him on the back. All right, Father. Yeah.
Yeah. And he went out and he decided to lead his legion, which, as I said, were known as the Star Hunters at the time. I don't know why they were known as Star Hunters.
Well, they're hunting stars.
Because they hunted
Pioneering.
through stars. It's probably the best way of looking at it. So he went out and started to roughly train with his father and the other Primarchs. Some of the Primarchs were a little bit skeptical at this point because, of course, the Khan had no knowledge of advanced weaponry. He'd never left the planet. He'd never seen an aircraft. He'd never fired any sort of bolt gun. So he was very much into feudal warfare, and eventually his training and working with them, he kind of became savvy to what was going on. As I said before, the White Scars at this point weren't a unified legion. They were pathfinders across the galaxy. And the Khan knew of this, and he wanted to unite them as he had done the tribes on his planet. So he put a call out for all White Scars to come back to their new homeworld. This took a little while, I believe. I'm not sure how long it took, but you can imagine how big the galaxy is, that they had to come from all corners. And a bit like the tribes, and it kind of emphasises a bit on what the White Scars are like I said before. They're very kind of insular. They don't necessarily, and the companies at the time, or the chapters, I'm not sure if it would be chapters or companies,
Legions
didn't trust other parts of the White Scar army, the White Scar Legion. So Khan wasn't going to have any of this because he wanted a unified force. So he did three things. The first thing is he had all of his legion that were there descend on the planet, and they performed two parts of like I think it was named the bloodening, if I'm right. Let me just check my notes here. I think it was known as the blooding and the ascension. So as the name White Scar goes, they basically cut their faces up. Ritual scarring. So they scarred their faces. And over time, it's basically meant more. The scars have meant more, as in like what company they're in. But at the time, not so much. They also gave themselves a new name as well, which would be more fitting for their role within the Legion. So obviously some were not too original, and they called themselves whatever Khan. So what was that about? Who knows? So there were two of the points. So of course they had been bonded by this ceremony. They'd been given the scars, they'd been given a new name, but this still wasn't enough. The Khan knew they needed something more to unite them as a legion, and he thought, what better way than to go and do some killing together.
As you do.
As we'll find out throughout this video, the White Scars love fighting. A bit different, I think you'll agree, Tom, to the likes of the World Eaters.
Oh, yes.
For another reason.
I'd say
same with
yeah.
other legions as well. They they enjoy fighting. They enjoy.
I'd say the aggression is there, but it's much more of a controlled aggression.
Yeah, definitely more controlled. Yeah, definitely. So they went and invaded what was known as the Korain Circle, which was a group of planets, kind of outlaw planets, planets held by Xeno forces, and this whole conflict couldn't be done by one part of the Legion. It had to be done by the whole Legion. And so basically the whole Legion worked as one, worked its way through the system here, claiming the planets. At this point as well, the Khan had started to put familiar forces of his own within the Legion, so people he had taken from the home world that he'd fought alongside before the Emperor's arrival, and he put them into certain places within the Legion, so they could then influence the others in the Legion and put across the Gogora's way of fighting and the way their whole culture is developed. I think it's worked pretty well, and they had a very good reputation. Although as a Legion, once going through this conflict, they basically stayed on the outskirts of the galaxy. They didn't really get involved, like I said, with other legions. That the Khan had a very muddled relationship with some of the other legions. Some he got on with really well. Of course, everyone seemed to like Horus.
Yep.
Oh, you wait and see what happens to him. He also had a very good relationship with Magnus as well. Because although the Khan, like I said, they enjoy warfare, they also were encouraged to study noble pursuits. So this was kind of along the lines of like calligraphy, hunting, telling stories, kind of different like art forms that you necessarily wouldn't put towards a force that had this reputation.
Yeah.
And so they were definitely becoming more cultured.
More human.
More human, yeah, a lot.
Because it's one of the things that is kind of their reputation is they did care for humans, in my opinion, as well. They kind of, in certain ways, I think, yeah. Yeah,
part of this, of course, is like I said, he's kind of mixed in some of the natives from the planet within the Legion, and their culture came across. And their culture is very much spiritual, a lot of superstition. And as you can imagine with the Imperial Truth, some of the Primarchs in other legions didn't necessarily agree with this. Notably, Gilliman. Gilliman, of course, bit of no fun Gilliman. He didn't really he didn't really like this. He thought, obviously, as we'll find out further down the line, religion necessarily isn't the best thing.
No.
Lorgar as well. He didn't approve of this, which is strange in some ways, because obviously, as we know from the heresy in general, Lorgar, head of the word bearers, was very much a religious primarch. But of course, this wasn't a religion he approved of. So, as all good religious leaders are, they throw down the towel and say, "No, this isn't on." And so, at that point, he rubbed people up the wrong way. But like I say, he kind of can't put this image across of someone that was mysterious. No one really knew who he was or what his thing was all about. Even the Emperor was pretty unsure on which way the Khan was going to go in the heresy in a lot of ways.
He's definitely a thinker.
Yeah, and he definitely kind of worked it all out. He, like I said, he really enjoys war. He doesn't enjoy the concept of not fighting. So he was never that keen on being the War Master, because he's like, well, it's not really my thing. I don't want to sit back and do this stuff. I want to be out in the front with my guys, having a laugh, cutting people up.
Having a laugh.
Well, it is. They were known as like the laughing killers, because they just enjoyed it so much. So he had this reputation, a bit of an unknown factor. He, so I said, became good friends with Magnus the Red. At the trial of Nicaea, I don't think he was present, which he later regretted, obviously, the outcome of the trial of Magnus, he regretted because he wasn't there, and we all know how it went, that the librarians were disbanded and they weren't going to practice it anymore, which kind of led slippery slope towards other things which happened, which we might cover in future videos. He definitely regretted that. He wasn't particularly friendly with some of the other Primarchs, and I think the likes of Gilliman, I don't think he was particularly fond of in some ways. I think Gilliman was kind of frowned upon his tactics a little bit. His tactics were quite different compared to most of like Codex tactics.
Uninventive,
yeah, pretty much like textbook
boring
stuff. And yet the Khan would go out, he'd find the weak point, and he would just punish that point, or he'd lure people out if they were in a strong point, lure them out, ambush them. It was very much like the hit and run. So I can imagine him and Korax probably had a lot of similar kind of interests. Although, as we will find out, for some reason, which I couldn't find anywhere, Tom, I don't know about you.
Yeah. No.
They weren't, the Raven Guard and the White Scars didn't see eye to eye. They're not on the same level as Space Wolves and Dark Angels, but there was
more of a distrust.
Distrust.
Yeah.
Yeah, between the two. So anyway, but just before the heresy kicked off, the Khan and the White Scars were on the outskirts fighting Orkies, probably placed there by Horus to keep them out of the way. They later learned of what had occurred and started coming in, not sure who to trust at this point. It's kind of, here it gets a bit hazy for me, but the Alpha Legion were kind of involved. They kept their distance, being Alpha Legion-y, and kind of trying not to get that involved in the fighting and
delaying them.
Yeah, definitely. The White Scars then learned of what happened on Prospero and went to see what had happened. Obviously, they found a bit of a smashed up planet. And I believe at this point is when some of the White Scars decided to rebel against the Khan, because at this point, nobody on either side knew which way the Khan was going. And so this force within the White Scars, who were part of the Warrior Lodge.
Yeah.
So the Warrior Lodge was kind of like a cross-legion organisation.
It's a club.
Bit of a club, a clubhouse, a lodge house.
Yeah.
And essentially, they were still in touch with Horus's agents, and they wanted to push the Khan and have like a coup d'etat against him, and have the White Scars side with Horus, or to completely get rid of the Khan. But I think it was probably more side with Horus. And so at this point, Khan was down on the planet, and this coup d'etat was taking place upon the battleships. Luckily, loyalists were able to keep control, and it was all good. Although on the planet, Mortarion was there, because the Death Guard had also come in. That good bit of timing. And Mortarion was also trying to get the Khan on side with him. But this kind of backfired, as the Khan, being the thinker, knew which way it was going to go. He went, well, actually, maybe Horus isn't actually the best suit for this anyway, so I think we're on the losing side.
The point on that one, though, he also didn't think the Emperor was the best option either. He was actually quite... No. He was quite... he felt a bit lied to, I think, as well, about certain things. So he had a kind of a... I think he really could have gone either way at that point.
I think what had happened with the Khan is he made this oath towards the Emperor. And he kind of, I think that was the tipping point where he went, actually, I've made my oath. I've made this bed. I'm going to sleep in it with a big sword and a bolt gun. And basically faced Mortarion. He'd seen that Mortarion had been slightly enhanced at this point, and he had a good old fight. And at this point, the fight always kind of, when I think of these fights, it makes me think of the Extraordinary League of Gentlemen. When you got Nemo, who's like, and that's sorry, that's a bit of a sidetrack. But I do see the Khan as this like lightning fast attacker with this really sharp blade,
going for the weak points.
Exactly. So then that fight happens, and the call goes out to come back to Terra, reinforce Terra, and he basically leaves. I think there's a bit of a conflict between the Alpha Legion and the Space Wolves. And the Space Wolves are essentially going, we really need your help. We need you to help and stand by us to get rid of these Alpha Legion. And the Khan makes a bit of a controversial call and go, sorry, Lehman, you're on your own here.
Daddy's calling.
I gotta go. I gotta go home. And so he leaves Lehman there, which that's the way it is. You've got to do the greater good. So he heads back to reinforce Terra, because of course we know what's going to happen at some point. And he goes in, and him and Lehman have a bit of a maybe crosswords between each other. What goes on? But he lands on Terra. What happens is that his force are kind of a counter-attacking force during the siege, aren't they? They're not man in the walls, like the other forces.
Much to Dawn's displeasure.
Yeah. And so he's launching out the gates. He's doing counterattacks here, there, and everywhere, and he's really proving his worth. I mean, he's retaking. I don't think he's been covered quite yet, but he retakes the Star Port at some point. And I think there's in the old lore, it hasn't been covered yet because obviously the story's still going. The Black Library novel's still going. There's a point where he's riding on top of a razorback, swinging his sword about. Going out, and he's like, "That's a Khan. He's just awesome. He's a force of nature. He's a warthog. He's this guy that can't be predicted. They can't predict what he's going to do.
He's like the wind.
Yeah, he's got very honourable intentions. I like to think he can be ruthless when it suits him. Yeah. But generally, he's. But
he was also very anti letting the civilian populace fight the battle without giving them a chance. He was very against, because obviously Dawn was very pragmatic about it. Saying, well, they've got to hold them back. To let them die. We'll just spend these. But he was like, no, we're here to save humanity. Kind of Sanguinius' way of thinking as well in certain ways. So,
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. He's and the more I read about the Khan, I mean, I don't know about you, Tom, but when I was doing my research, I was like, oh, I've got some old codexes.
No,
this is great.
Don't do
I'm
that.
going to be using these. I tell you what, there's literally nothing. There's one picture of a white star in one of these, and except for there's nothing.
I mean, even obviously now they have their own supplement, so there's a bit more detail. But in the old ones, there wasn't a lot of detail. So
so for research purposes, I have to go online for most of this. I did read Scars years ago, which I thought was a really enjoyable novel, because you get a bit of an insight in how the White Scars work. And like I said, they've got this image to outsiders of like reavers and barbarians, because their armor is covered with like these little fetishes and talismans, and they've got like plumes. They're riding these massive bikes. Yeah, yeah, exactly. The weapons are a little bit out of the norm, and so you look at them and go, "Oh, these aren't right." But like we said earlier, they're not savages. They enjoy what they do, but they don't lose control.
Yeah,
they're very controlled in what they do, and the way they wage war, like they hit and run, you have to be controlled. If you don't have control, it's just hit and you slowly go.
You're a world eater then.
You're a world eater, yeah, or you're a space wolf. Yeah,
yep.
Controversial there.
Ooh.
But you're one of the two. You're not a White Scar, and that's what I really like about the White Scars.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much my 30K.
Well, I mean, you brought it to kind of like, because obviously it all ended with the. I mean, I can launch straight into the other bit if you want.
Go for it. Go for the 40k, and then we'll.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Dom's did quite a bit on 30k because there's actually a bigger chunk of that, and my bit's not as big, to be honest. But I'm going to go with what I've found roughly, and I will sort of lead straight on for where you've ended, because obviously post heresy, when everything had sort of happened, you had all the meetings and the discussion of how the legions are going to move forward, obviously, and. So obviously all the stuff that you described about the White Scars is what people think a lot about them. However, they adopted Gilliman's Codex Astartes model. Yeah, and I feel that at that point, obviously they just wanted to get in line. They didn't want another civil war. They saw the greater picture that if they didn't do this, it was going to cause problems. Unlike other Primarchs like Dawn, who are obviously one of my favourites. He didn't really fancy splitting the legions up. He was kind of like, well. Khan was very much let's just get on with this and we'll have this, and so essentially they split into I think it was 3 other chapters at the time, because obviously considering they lost quite a few of their chapters to civil unrest and all this business, I presume they weren't as large as the ones that were gathering. So
I think the thing is, as we note for the future videos, is obviously after the heresy. So many of the legions suffered horrendous casualties. Like obviously, I think the Ultramarines probably came off best.
Dark Angels, maybe. I don't know.
But the White Scars, obviously, Siege of Terror, they suffered quite heavily
because they were already depleted when they got there. Because
they already had some conflicts.
Yeah. So they got split into the Rampagers, the Marauders, Destroyers, and the Stormlords. So 4 separate chapters from my reading. There might be some other ones, but that's kind of the ones I found that were most consistent. So, and obviously, the White Scars, which we're focusing on, were obviously part of this, and they split down into this kind of new format of, obviously they used to have brotherhoods, and they still have brotherhoods. However, I think the way that they functioned after the Codex Astartes came into place is very much changed to how they were back in the Horus Heresy era, because obviously I think back then they kind of had a brotherhood, and that brotherhood would focus on a certain aspect of war or whatever and become very good at that particular thing, and whereas now they with the Codex Astartes being adopted, they kind of have to have a certain rigid format for each of those brotherhoods now. So you got the 6 battle lines and the bits that, and obviously. They kept their armor color though. Obviously, they didn't do any changes there. They kept the white with the lightning bolt symbol on the shoulder, which is pretty cool. And Chagoris was still around. It hadn't been blown up in any of the wars or anything like that. So they still recruit from there, from what I understand, which is quite cool. So however, they have when they're doing their recruitment, obviously. Beforehand, when Khan had unified all the whole planet, I think that might have gone back a little bit since he's left. So they've gone back to kind of these warring tribes again, and essentially they'll select the best out of these warring tribes. And I think previously what they would do is select them based on a certain skill set and put them into the brotherhood that featured that skill set. Whereas now they try and mix these different tribes, even though they might be warring against each other before they became a Space Marine, they'll still mix them with other people that they may not like, because I think essentially the Khan was like, no, you're going to have to just get on with it. You've got to learn that there's a bigger picture. And that also leads to an interesting point, is that from what I understand, they don't psycho condition their Marines, so they have full memories of their previous lives, essentially, before they become a Space Marine, which is quite interesting because obviously I think the idea is that it didn't want them to lose whatever edge they had from getting to become a selected warrior for the White Scars.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's
yeah.
like the main thing you get about the
Yeah.
White Scars. They're kind of very wild, and they enjoy life.
Yeah.
Which probably isn't true for a lot of Marines,
No.
Especially in the 41st millennium. I think White Scars definitely enjoy what they do. They enjoy their culture. They enjoy their brotherhood. Where a lot of Marines probably a bit more solemn in the way they conduct.
Yeah. And so obviously he got them all. And obviously the Khan, Jakita Khan, led them still, obviously at the moment. However, I think it was about 70 years from what I've read, roughly after the heresy ended. It was quite soon after. He had been called out to a certain part of the solar system to find out what certain Imperial warriors were being taken, mutilated, killed, whatever, as I understand it, and it was the Dark Eldar. Yeah, those
can't trust them.
No, and yeah, he was pretty. I think he was pretty pissed off at the Drakari essentially, and I can't find a huge amount of information on it, but essentially it comes to the point when he's obviously fought the Drakari. I think there were some Emperor's children involved somewhere as well, I might add, somewhere. I mean, obviously they got some cross purposes, I suppose, those two people maybe.
They got some similar interests.
Similar interests.
If I was a Khan, I wouldn't get involved.
No, yeah. But turn
the lights
on. But essentially, it got to the point where obviously I think the White Scars are obviously going to win. So the Khan's going towards the Drakari leader, who's trying to escape through a webway portal with his entire First Brotherhood. And this is where it gets a little bit sketchy because no one quite knows what happens. But from what I understand is that the Khan is literally so focused on killing this Drakari leader that he follows him into the webway portal just as it's closing.
Yeah.
And gone. But I've also heard other accounts that apparently the First Brotherhood was in there with him as well, which is an interesting thing. Some say it was the entire First Brotherhood, some say some of it, whatever. But but I would think if it was some of it and not all of it, someone would know what actually happened because they would at least see the gate close and we're in they're in there. We don't know how to get in.
Yeah, I think in the recent law, Khan is still alive. I think they saw him in a.
I would be shocked if they were to kill him off, quite frankly.
Yeah, I think vision. I think he was seen in a vision. So, like, Games Workshop obviously have kept him alive for now.
I think
awesome.
I think he'll come back. I think he will come back. So, but I digress slightly. So he's lost there. And I'm trying to think where I should go into this bit now because it's part of. I mean, if I just link this into the character I've chosen anyway, just if that's all right, because it kind of ties in. So obviously, at the moment, the current chapter master or Great Khan of the White Scars is Jubal Khan.
Yep.
He's actually, from what I understand, he was actually around during the heresy as well. I think he was quite an old Space Marine from what I can tell, which leads me into the next bit that the fact he's quite old. Sadly, for the White Scars, he is leader in pretty much all in strategy only now, because essentially, from what I can gather, he was pretty brutally tortured by the Red Corsairs for a few weeks, not a few days, a few weeks. He was obviously rescued, but apparently he can no longer operate in a battlefield role anymore.
Oh dear.
Yeah. So.
So how do those Marines who fall in battle? What normally happens to Marines that are quite badly wounded, Tom?
Well, they normally get put in dreadnoughts.
What do the White Scars think of dreadnoughts? Are they pro dreadnought?
No, not really. Which is obviously. I mean, you could see that as a reason why maybe they didn't offer him that particular service, and why. Because this is one thing while doing the research, I was quite surprised about. Because obviously here he can't do battle anymore, but. Why not put him in a dreadnought? And then we both did a little research on this, and we found that they're not too fond of dreadnoughts, to be honest. There's a kind of a thing that if you put a warrior in there, he's no longer kind of, I suppose, is it free or feels like he's very quiet, can't pursue the normal pursuits. I mean, I don't think they're against dreadnoughts.
No, I think the research I've done is they are very much about free movement.
Yeah,
kind of being able to do all their cool sword stuff. So like the character I picked, which I'll go into in a bit. He famously enjoyed Terminator armor. So obviously there is that thing there that they don't want to be kind of encumbered. They like to be free.
And obviously, the other thing about the White Scars, they live for kind of speed, strategic maneuverability, and things like that. And they don't tend to use an awful lot of high firepower weapons. So from the Codex Astartes point of view, that's kind of against that's the one bit they haven't adopted as much as other chapters have. They still prefer to have a high count of bikes and speeders and fast vehicles, because that's how they want to operate. They think that's the best way to sort of get in and do the job, and
so with that in mind, I think that leads quite nicely into our next section, which will be if you've played as White Scars, or if you've played against White Scars, on what you'd expect to see in a White Scar army. So Tom, have you ever played as White Scars?
No.
Have you played against White Scars?
Do you know what? I'm racking my brain, and I don't think I have.
Okay. But from what you know of White Scars, what would you think you'd see? Or should I? So I've played White Scars. Let's go through that. I played White Scars in 8th edition, and what I saw was a lot of bikes. Lots of bikes. A couple of drop pods coming in as well.
Yep.
And a couple of big executioner tanks. I think the executioner tanks there really for more meta purposes.
Yeah, I don't think that it doesn't really sort of suit. I don't think it suits them at all, really. But that's just.
I mean, you've got impulsors.
Impulsors would work.
Yeah, I would appreciate. You can probably see them.
Oddly enough, obviously just a small rules thing is that they do have a stratagem that allows them to disembark after moving a vehicle.
Yeah.
And still operate as normal. So you can see impulsors being used quite nice there. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it definitely would suit them. So that's my experience anyway. Very fast, in your face, very quickly, and you've got to deal with them because they're just all over the place. You've got to try and take the bikes out. Which aren't too bad if you can focus fire.
Yeah.
But when you've got, for instance, 3 squads, each squad has 10 bikes.
It's quite a lot of wounds.
It's a lot to kill in like one turn before they're on you. But yeah, that's my experience anyway at White Scar. So Tom, what would you expect to see from a White Scar?
It's very similar. I think land speeders, bikes are quite. I think, especially looking at some of the rules, I think that's what I would see. I would hope to see anyway. I mean, obviously, I don't think that you can totally rule out them using standard foot troops either, because some of the stuff they have does help them. But I think jump packs as well, I would imagine, have a strong fielding in them. But I think bikes is probably one of the main associated focuses with the White Scars army. And I think if you don't have them, people would sort of say, "You sure you play White Scars?" Because I think that's one of the key elements is their love. They like to ride in the saddle. That's their thing. Yeah. They're born in the saddle, as they say. So it's like it's one of their biggest things I think that you associate with them.
Yeah. So currently, obviously everyone's getting Primaris heavy. We know it's coming, but obviously the models haven't been released yet. But with the Dawn of 9th edition around the corner, we know that Primaris are getting bikes.
Yeah.
Currently, only Little Marines or Original Marines, Marines Light, or have bikes. You've got attack bikes, normal bikes, scout bikes. No Primaris bikes, but we know Primaris bikes are coming. Yeah. So I think maybe that's the reason we haven't seen that many White Scar players out.
No, I think that's
they've
fair.
been waiting.
Yeah.
I think the Dawn of 9th edition will see the Khan return with loads of bikes.
He's just been storing them in the Webway gateway. He's like, do you need these, guys?
Yeah. Gilliman's been in touch. He knows what's going on. Some bikes. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's what we're gonna see. Maybe not in the story, but I think on the tabletop, I think White Scars will suddenly appear in force.
Yeah, that's
right. So you've got impulsors. We know we're getting assault marines, intercessors with. Intercessors?
Yeah, assault intercessors. Yeah, so they'll be basically bolt pistol chainsaws.
So, I mean, they all go hand in hand, really, don't they? Like we're saying, that you can come out of a vehicle and you can assault straight away, which is quite cool. Cool. Okay, so I think we've covered what we're expecting to see and what our experience is with the White Scars. Do you want to go into one of your characters?
Well, I've technically already done one. Jubal Khan, so I've kind of covered. But I could. I mean, it's depending on who did you pick anyway, just out of interest, because I don't want to sort of just steal your thunder.
Well, I picked a 30k character, a character from the
Ah,
Heresy.
well, well, did you
So
want to
I
do him
picked
first?
Q-Inzar.
Yeah.
So I'll do Q-Inzar quickly if you want. Zar, as I'm going to call him in this, he knew the Khan personally. He'd grown up with the Khan. He was head of the Khan's bodyguards, which I think are called the Keishing. I might be completely wrong there. But he was quite a notorious fighter and a hunter. Like I said earlier, he wore Terminator armor. There is a model that's coming out. I don't think the model's been released yet from Forge Road. I don't know if you got the image there, Tom.
Oh yes. Hang on a second. Sorry, I know which one you're talking. Sorry, mate.
That's all right.
Maybe no 1 second.
The image up and I'll carry on.
Yes. Here we are. It's going to be up, and yeah, there he is.
Okay. Yeah, I think he's quite cool. I really like the model. I love the helm. It's quite a funky looking helm. Right. So anyway, so he was a very loyal bodyguard or head of the bodyguards for the Khan. He'd definitely tell him what he's thinking. He wouldn't always agree with the Khan, which I think is quite important if you're going to be close to a Primarch, that you're able to speak your mind, because sometimes Primarchs are quite egotistical beings and they need to be grounded occasionally. And he was definitely going to be one of these people that can actually stand up and say something. So yeah, he preferred Terminator armor. He was very skilled in combat, still with his Terminator armor, which is most Marines obviously kind of prefer power armor, makes them quicker, and especially the way White Scars fight. Basically, I think it was a few years into the Heresy, he got into conflict with the Emperor's Children and went against Eidolon of the Emperor's Children. They had this massive fight, and unfortunately, he was quite badly wounded in this conflict. And just as the killing blow was coming, he was teleported, probably summoned away from the conflict into safety. At this point, he was on his way out. Unfortunately, he'd been very mortally wounded. He'd done the best he can. Unfortunately, the White Scars had failed the spell. So not all characters have heroic victories all the time. No. You've got to lose a couple of fights before you can win one. Or maybe the other way around. I think normally works out better. Lose few, then win, rather than win, then lose. But unfortunately, so he was mortally wounded. His last concerns, though, were that the Khan would fail, and he would blame himself for his death and for the loss. Luckily, he was reassured that this wasn't going to be the case, and then he passed. He died, unfortunately. So it's not much on him, although I did love this whole background of being able to tell the Khan what he was thinking, and he would disagree when the Khan came up with something. He'd be very strong-willed and able to fight his corner if he thought he was being wronged, let's say.
Yeah.
But that's my character, and I'd say I really love that model. He definitely stood out at me, and I was like, yeah, I would love to see this on the battlefield.
Cool.
What about you, Tom?
Well, I'm going to obviously because of my conflict, I'm going to do a little bit on this chap, because obviously he's actually in my conflict as well. So it's Corsaro Khan, Master of the Hunt. So basically, in the White Scars, there's normally someone who's given this title of Master of the Hunt, who becomes, who basically, I think it's every 25 years, is given a task to hunt down a particular enemy of the White Scars who may have escaped in the previous, and so Corsaro Khan is currently this position in the chapter, and he he's as an actual space marine, he's a particularly savage as well. He's savage, but also to the point of recklessness. But he's also one of the chapter's most accomplished warriors as well. So he's quite, and I think I'll put the picture up on it, because I believe this will come up a bit later anyway. he's with the bird of prey as well. So he has a bird of prey, I believe, which I do not know the name of because I can't find it.
Basil.
We'll call him Basil. But essentially, yeah, I haven't got an awful lot of info on him because he's going to come up in my conflict anyway. So I will go into that a bit more detail. But he is the master of the hunt currently, and yeah, he's a pretty cool looking character as well, which I'll show in a bit when I go for the other bit. The conflict in question for me would be the hunt for Voldris, just to give you a little pre-warning on that one. So yeah, that would be my second pick for White Scars anyway. And how about, have you got a second one, or did you leave a?
I've only got one character.
That's fair enough.
The problem is with the White Scars, they don't have many character models, so that's why I kind of.
Yeah, it was a tough. They obviously do have characters, but it's hard to find a lot of good information on them. There's actually a lot on Korsaro Khan, but the fact is, reading all through it and trying to give you something that means something is quite a lot, because it's hence why I thought when we get to the conflict, I'll go into a bit more detail with him, because he's obviously in that particular conflict, so I think it would give a better idea of it. So yeah, fine.
Okay. So yeah, we've done a bit on characters. Like I say, it's quite limited, unfortunately. The White Scars, as we kind of saw with these, haven't had much love. Obviously, in 8th edition now.
Well, I mean, even obviously in the 8th edition book itself, you had like three or four pages before the supplement came out as well, which is better than nothing, obviously.
Yep.
But it's still not an awful lot, and that's obviously why you had the supplements. So yeah.
Cool. Okay, well, let's go into conflicts. So the conflict I've picked is the 13th Black Crusade. So it's the older version of the 13th Black Crusade, not the more up-to-date one.
Is that the non-canon one?
I'd like to think it still took place.
Okay.
There's quite a big conflict on. So essentially, the White Scars, the second company, took part in the 13th Black Crusade on Cadia. So part of this force that came down, and their job, they saw, like what we've talked about already today, is they're very much hit and run. They don't like a static battlefield. So they were led by Kejong Khan. I think I'm butchering these names, but he was head of the second company, and he led his force against sieges of Cadian fortresses, and I think they liberated 3 fortresses, which is pretty good going, considering what's going on the planet. There's heretic Astartes forces everywhere. There's demons. There's Lost in the Dam. The battlefield on Cadia, even in the old version, I'm assuming it's a new version, would have been absolute hell. It would have been rammed for the people. There'd have been no chance of any kind of reprieve for anyone involved in that. But essentially, they had freed 3 Cadian fortresses. Abaddon at this point had worked out what's going on, and he'd got his head sorcerer to basically go, look, what's going on here? What are they doing? Where are they going? I need to find out, because they're really becoming a thorn in my side, as White Scars would be.
Yeah.
Because, they're gone before you can do anything about it.
Hit and run.
Yeah, exactly. So he sent out hunting parties to find the White Scars and set up an ambush. And so the White Scars, unfortunately, fell into this ambush. They suffered pretty horrendous casualties at this point. And so, as I said, White Scars fell out of combat. They then fell back to the coast, where they were by a pylon. So obviously one of the Cadian pylons were there. I believe at this point there was maybe there was less than 100 of them, and the captain was still alive. They'd cornered back to the sea, pylon next to them, chaos forces around them, and they decided. They did a bit of a last stand situation, revved their engines, revved their chainsaws, loaded their bolt guns, just charged headlong into the Black Legion, Lost in the Damned, and put up a hell of a fight. And gradually they were ground down to just the captain who was left, who eventually fell to the Black Legion forces. But I can imagine that fight being pretty spectacular, almost like a semicircle around them of Chaos forces, and they're just like, "There's no way out of this, guys."
A little bit like 300.
Yeah, or a bit like Dunkirk.
Oh, Dunkirk! Yeah. Except no boats came to rescue them.
No boats. So yeah, they basically charged in. They made a good account for themselves. Like I said, I think the White Scars generally enjoy battle, and I'd like to think that the best way a White Scar can go out is fighting alongside his brother. And yeah, they fell. And like a lot of the White Scar stories I'm doing about my character and about this conflict is they don't always have happy endings, but the way they live and the way they die is definitely the most important about the White Scars. So yeah, that's my story.
Cool.
And I like to think that was in current. It's a shame. I'd love to think that's still in current law.
It might be.
I'm assuming it is.
Might be.
So unless Games Workshop correct me, it's current law. Same here.
Little Inquisition symbol's going to pop up now. Just
yeah, being purged. Daniel. Right. So Tom.
Yes. But first of all, before I do go into this, if anyone hasn't read the Hunt for Voldris or / Liberation of Quintus, you might want to stop listening for a little bit now, and I'm going to give you a chance.
All right. So when you see me wave my arms like this,
yeah, it's over.
Turn the volume back on.
Yeah, because basically this is actually a book, and it's actually one that Dom listened to with me while we're on our way up to Warhammer World. But it's about a conflict anyway. So and I actually quite enjoyed. But obviously I'm not going to go to the whole thing because that'll take ages. But I'm going to give you the kind of the little points in it. So anyway, the Hunt for Voldris. Which is also the Liberation of Quintus, which was the area they were in. However, Voldris is a demon prince. Or Demon Prince Kernax Voldris. I'm just doing a little reading here because I've got a few notes. And yeah, it essentially, Coruscaro Khan was tasked with taking him down. And this guy, or this Demon Prince, has been evading them in several other places. Notably Zoran, Moda, Cavell. They may not mean anything to him, but that's the list of places where he's kind of slipped away. Hence why. Yeah, you imagine the Great Khan's got a list of people on it, and I think Voldris is at this point. Yeah, this guy at the top, we want him. So he sends Coruscaro Khan to go and deal with him because he's the Master of the Hunt, obviously. Now, when they get to the location that he was last seen on this in Quintus, they sort of arrive. They go, right, we'll go and find him, and then they kind of find that Demon Prince has been quite busy. He's basically been gradually corrupting the entire local PDF force of the entire planet. So not only are they trying to get this Demon Prince, but they've suddenly walked into essentially an entire hostile planet against them. So yeah, pretty tall order. However, and this leads into the point that Don brought up about the Raven Guard. The Raven Guard were there as well, because on a separate thing, they were literally down there going, bit of heresy going on here. We'll go and sort it out. And essentially, although they, as we said before, quite distrustful of each other, they realise that as a singular force in their own respects, they cannot do either of their tasks. So they come to a kind of an alliance to try and quell the issues that are going on this planet, and obviously also to take the head of the Demon Prince, essentially. So. There's a few battles that go on, and eventually it comes to a head, and they come up with this plan where Shrike is going to essentially put out kind of a secret attack, as Raven Guard do, on a orbital on an orbital defense battery, and they attack this battery, and the Demon Prince is now seeing what's going on. He's like, oh. We don't want that happening. We need that battery. If they've got any ships up there, we don't want them being shot down. So anyway, essentially, Shrike is essentially holding this battery reasonably well until the Alpha Legion turn up. Yeah, I know. Yeah, exactly. The sneaky Alpha Legion, which obviously the Demon Prince is kind of coerced / recruited for this particular mission, and they join in the attack. And then a Baneblade called the Iron Soul comes around the corner at the front fortifications and blows a massive hole in the fortifications, which basically puts a complete spanner in Shrike's plan for the Raven Guard, and they end up having to hold this breach open with him in the middle of it, fighting off all the Alpha Legion and all the damned and all that. Yeah, trying to. And however, not quite as it seems, because this was kind of a pre-plan from with the White Scar's help here. So Khosaro Khan has been hiding in some caves to the south of this particular battery, and he's waiting for the forces of the Demon Prince to get inside with Shrike. So and then essentially he then comes, blasting out of these caves and into the back of the armies and completely, hits them surgically in all the places they don't want to be hit. Yeah, not good for the Chaos Forces anyway. And essentially, it then gets to the point where obviously the Demon Prince is realizing he's going to lose. So he tries to sort of escape, but it doesn't quite go well for him, because essentially he then gets cornered by both Khosaro Khan and Shrike. Yeah, I know it's not.
That's a bit of a
he's a
nasty mix, isn't it?
He's a Demon Prince, so he's quite tough to take down. So there's quite a big battle that goes on. However, it ends in the fact that Shrike, essentially, with the help of Khosaro, manages to pin the Demon Prince to a statue of the Emperor on his sword, I believe it is. And then essentially, the Khan, the Master of the Hunt, walks up with his blade and just goes, head gone, job done. And then they're both like, yeah, we're and then the Raven Guard and the White Scar's like, yeah, we're mates now. Yeah, I think it goes a bit of a way to maybe mend some bridges, and then essentially, obviously, he takes that back and he's completed his great hunt for this particular. So that's
am I right in thinking that they decapitate his head? They decapitate the demon and put his head on a spike or
I
something?
believe that's correct, yes.
They normally put it on like a spike back on the homeworld.
Yes.
I think,
that's right, yes. He goes back to the feast. That's it. Just coming back. They go back to like a celebration at Chagoris, and then at the end of it, they basically present it as a trophy. I think that's correct. I don't know 100% help with that.
I think they put the heads and the spikes on the road into the capital or something like that. I think it's pretty gruesome.
Very ritualistic.
It very much goes along the same theme that we've been going on throughout this about the White Scars.
And also, just as another point that me and Don probably remember listening to this, and I do remember a particular scene that just says White Scars, is that there's a train the Demon Prince is in, if I remember correctly, and it's going along the thing, and the Khan's like, well, how do we get in here? And then they're like, oh, I know, let's just drive our bikes on top of it.
The way you do it. I mean, to be fair, it kind of says a lot about them that they're probably the most accoined bikers,
skilled riders
in the Imperium. Alongside some of the Ravenwing. Probably better than Ravenwing. Way better than Ravenwing.
Ravenwings use stabilizers, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, tricycles.
Tricycles.
So we've gone about the.
Hope that's all right.
A lot. No, I think you did a really good job. So let's get on about some of the models that are available.
Yeah.
So Tom, do you want to go on about your Forge World choice of the day?
Yeah, I mean, I think Forge World is a good place to start, really, in this particular section.
Definitely.
I as everyone knows, I like my Dreadnoughts, and I keep harping on about it. But I think my most favourite White Scar model in the current Forge World range, I'm just putting up now, so just bear with me a second. There we go. There he is, the old big boy, the Leviathan Dreadnought.
Yeah.
But I think what I love about this is, it's very characterful for the White Scars. I think you got this. The front armor's got this nice little finish on it with a big lightning bolt through the middle of it. It's also got it's got some kind of hanging cloth from the bottom, some nice little tribal style things on it, and I think it just it's a White Scar unit right from the beginning, and I think it's just a solidly good looking dreadnought, quite frankly. It's right up there with like the Cullens of the Dreadnought family, in my opinion, because it's got a lot more detail on it than a standard Dread or standard Leviathan. That's the one I would. Like we said before, that it seems weird. Like we said, obviously before we start recording, that White Scars on Forge World have an abundance of Dreadnoughts, and yet, especially probably back then, they weren't very keen on it. So you've really got to annoy a member of your own legion. To end up going inside a Dreadnought. Maybe they aren't White Scars in there. Maybe it's another member of the chapter.
Yeah, maybe.
They recruit dreadnought pilots.
Yeah. Sorry. That's where the servitors go.
Yeah.
For me, it would be the White Scar Legion Praetor.
Praetor,
The
I'll just get that
one
there
in
as well.
the power armor, not
The one with just the
Terminator's cool, but I'm talking about the power armor guy.
Yeah. I've got it up there now, so you're all good.
Yeah.
So he's got his little eye patch on.
Yeah. So I think you get alternative heads with him as well.
Yeah.
You don't just get the one. So you get one power with a helmet. And a helmet.
I've never been a big fan of wearing the models without a helmet. I find it bizarre.
Safety first.
Yeah.
I like him just mainly because he's very dynamic. He was one of the early Praetors that was Legion specific, and I think he's got very good pose.
Yes.
Like we're saying, White Scars are very kind of agile in the way they fight.
You get that from that model.
Yeah, definitely, and he's very nice. And considering a lot of in my opinion, some of the Forge World Praetors are a little bit static. And this guy definitely is not static at all. He's very much kind of fluid.
He's moving.
Yeah.
He's moving.
Yeah, he's moving. He's one with the wind, and he's off to fight some foes. And I love it. I think he's a very cool model, and that's why I picked him because I think he also fit quite nicely into your 40k army without any trouble. Maybe replace a backpack, but except for that, lovely model. I really liked him, and that's my pick. Might not be as exciting as a massive dreadnought, but I think he's quite a cool model.
It's a cool model, yeah. I mean, to be honest, my close second was the Cataphracti Praetor. I do like that as well. So,
actually, looking at the Praetor that I've just picked, maybe you take the head off the glaive, put a hammer there, and put a jump pack on.
And you got a jump captain.
Yeah.
Oh, Dom.
I think he would fit quite nicely. If anyone wants to convert that and send it to me, that'd be great.
I bet you
I'll start a White Scar army. That's my Forge World selection. Now, Tom.
Yeah.
Games Workshop, White Scars. Do they have lots and lots of support?
No, not really. I'm actually. It's kind of disappointing actually, considering they're quite a proud chapter from the point of view of history and lore. I'm going to pick the one that people probably realise ago, which is going to be Kasaro Khan. Yeah, I know. So I'm just going to stick him up there as well. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, and I think in all seriousness, if you're going to have one model in the range, I'd say this guy's cool. He looks the part, you know. Obviously, I think previously he used to be on Moondraken, didn't he?
Yes.
Previous model, which I think a lot of people were a bit, I'll say upset about, I'd imagine, because.
I can definitely see why people would be upset that the guy. He's for a mounted army hasn't got a mount. In fact, the bird has a mount. It's in fact him.
Yeah. But yeah, honestly, I think that it's also, in my opinion, slightly because he's been Primaris-ified, hasn't he, as well?
Yes.
So I mean, obviously, the thinking of that is that I would imagine that they didn't want to give away they were doing bikes at the time. Maybe, it seems a very bizarre decision that they couldn't sort of give him a mount of some description, just as or give two versions of the model, one without, one with, but. It's that's the way it is. But to be fair, he's still a pretty cool looking model. I
really like his face. I think it's very detailed, and it kind of goes along the lines of the rest of the White Scars, where they're meant to have this kind of like Mongolian look to them, very like Asian look, and he's definitely got it, which I think is quite cool. Like a lot of 40k armies, they're not that diverse.
No, not really.
In their way, they're like racial appearance.
Yes.
But I think definitely with the White Scars, that's something they could really embrace a bit more because
I think it'd look cool.
And
people would probably play, especially with maybe some more of the heads off as well, because it gives you their army a bit of style, And I think that is a good example there of a model that's done it quite well. I think as well.
Definitely. So. I'd definitely want to see more, and the same with other chapters in 40k. For instance, like Raven Guard. When you see Raven Guard, they should be really like quite pale, and most of the time they're not. They're just normal flesh color, which is a bit of a shame. In my answer. Right, so my selection of like the free units or free packs you can get is going to be the Primaris upgrade.
Okay, I'll get that up there. That is up there now. So there we
nice. Because it's quite cool, and I'm always, like you might have seen through these videos, I'm always keen on an upgrade kit, in my opinion, because it gives you a lot of possibilities to do a bit of kit bashing and to use these parts. Because you're not going to use all of these in one go. You're going to have these sitting around for a while. Like the chain swords got this nice curve to them.
Yes.
You've got the you've got the risen up shoulder pads.
Yeah.
They look very cool, quite nice to paint as well. The heads, they're different. I think they're quite close to what they were getting with that look.
Again, it does. They do. I will say that they do look very.
To them, isn't there?
But at the same time, they do look like a standard Space Marine head still in certain ways. There's something about the shape. It's not quite. I don't think it's quite there, but it's still.
Maybe I should compare that to another Primaris head and see if there is that much of a difference.
Yeah,
I think they could have worked a little bit more with that, really, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I'm always a fan of an upgrade kit because I think every Legion, chapter, warband, regiment, whatever.
Playing Black Templars, I'm quite lucky. The upgrade kit we still currently have is actually particularly expansive.
Yes.
What you get. However, it's obviously dated. And that's the key problem. At least this is a Primaris one, so it works with the current models, and that's a really important thing.
Exactly.
Fine.
But yeah, that's my selection.
Cool.
If I was the White Scales, I'd probably get that. So I think we've pretty much covered everything. Now, Tom, how do you find the White Scales? Because I've actually really enjoyed looking into this.
I have enjoyed it, and if I'm taking honest, I wish I'd done a bit more research on my character, because I feel like I didn't quite do him justice. But at the same time, as we say when we're doing these things, it's time. And but overall, I think if I was to say, I think their 30k history is really, really good. From what I think there's so much story there. But in comparison to say the 40k universe at the moment, I don't think there is as much to sort of work with, because I feel like they lost a little bit of their flavour after going to being put into the Codex Astartes. I think they lost a little bit of their. It's very. You can compare them to say the Black Templars, who, as an example, they kind of went Codex Astartes. No, not really. But at the same time, they've gone off and done their own thing, and it's a shame that other chapters couldn't do that, because it just made them very standard. I mean, there's lots of reasons why it was done, for gameplay and for story, I'd imagine, just to try and. But it's just a shame, because I feel like they've lost a little bit of their mystery. I think is the
I think definitely in game terms they definitely could add so much more to the White Scars. Obviously, look at the likes of, like I said, the Ravenwing or Dark Angels.
Yeah, exactly.
And they've got lots of nice units there. They've got 3 unique units, maybe.
Yeah, I think.
And they've got several flyers that are Dark Angel.
I keep forgetting they're Dark Talons and things like that, aren't they?
Yeah, but White Scars, for an army that's notoriously always mounted, have currently nothing, which I think is a real shame, because they could definitely do with a unique unit, because they've got their own codex now, even though it's a supplement. It'd be quite nice that they get something out of it, possibly going forwards. I've always been interested in White Scars.
Yeah.
Because I do love this idea of a mounted army, and I kind of like what I knew of the background. I quite liked, and now after doing this, the background is pretty awesome.
So it's very interesting, and I think if anyone's sort of looking at the Horus Heresy books and hasn't read them around the White Scars, definitely do it, because there's some interesting stuff in there. Yeah, and definitely Siege of Terror. Siege of Terror, definitely, 100%. Yeah, definitely good stuff there. So, guys, I hope you've all enjoyed our version of the White Scars. So the BlackToad stamp.
Yeah, and we haven't frustrated current White Scar players by missing too much out.
And if we have, tell us what we did wrong, and we are happy to admit to it.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, we didn't want to dishonour them too much. We've definitely enjoyed doing them. If you've got any suggestions on what we should do next time, please put a comment below, and we will look into doing them, because we love doing these videos, don't we, Tom? Yeah, I'm getting more and more enthused every time we do these, actually, I must admit. I'm starting to get my head into my research pattern and stuff like that as well, which is good. So hopefully they'll get better as we go on. Oh, definitely. Right, so anyway, this is Dom and Tom from BlackToad Studios, and we will see you next time. Take care. Bye.